Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. It all started with a proposal, an unexpected one, really. My life seemed to be on a straightforward path until I met Robert. He was an old man, much older than me, but wealthy beyond belief. His charm was undeniable, and his promise of a lavish lifestyle was tempting. At the time, I thought I was simply securing my future, nothing more. But what I didn't expect was how complicated things would become. We got married quickly, and I moved into a life of luxury that I never imagined possible. Robert was kind, though a little distant. The age gap was there, undeniable and constant, but it didn't bother me. My heart wasn't in love with him. It was in love with the life he could give me. At first, that was enough. But then something strange began to happen, something I couldn't ignore. I first met Ethan at one of Robert's lavish parties. Ethan was everything I hadn't expected, young, vibrant, and utterly captivating. He was Robert's son, and though he had inherited none of his father's wealth, he had a charisma that outshone anything money could buy. There was an instant connection between us, but I brushed it off, thinking it was just a fleeting moment. I was married, after all. Yet, deep down, something told me that meeting Ethan would change everything. At first, Ethan was just an occasional figure in my life, someone I would see at family gatherings or social events. But with each passing encounter, the tension between us grew. His smile lingered longer than necessary, his eyes a little too intense. He seemed to see right through me, as though he knew exactly what I was thinking. It made me uneasy, yet I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. I hated how easily he made my heart race. It was supposed to be just an arrangement, nothing more. It was a quiet evening when it happened. Ethan and I found ourselves alone in the garden, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. He looked at me with those piercing eyes and, without warning, confessed his feelings. "I've been in love with you since the moment I met you," he said. My heart skipped a beat. I was shocked. No, I was more than shocked. I was terrified. The man I had married was sitting just a room away, and his son was confessing to me. This was wrong, all kinds of wrong. But why did it feel so right? I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan after that night. His words haunted me, and the guilt was suffocating. I was married, committed to Robert, yet here I was, thinking about his son in a way I shouldn't have. I had no right to feel this way. It was just supposed to be an arrangement, a step towards securing my future. But the more I resisted Ethan, the more my feelings for him intensified. I tried to stay distant, but it was as if fate was pushing us closer together. One night, everything changed. I had been trying to push away the thoughts of Ethan, but there was only so much my heart could take. I found myself alone with him again, this time in the study. The tension between us was thick, and before I could stop myself, I kissed him. It wasn't planned, it wasn't thought out. It was a mistake. A huge, reckless mistake. But in that moment, it felt like everything I had been craving. My head was spinning, my heart was racing, and I was no longer sure who I was. What followed was a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, desire, and fear. Ethan and I tried to act normal, but the air between us was charged. Robert, ever oblivious to the storm brewing, continued with his life, unaware of the betrayal happening right under his nose. Every time I looked at him, I saw the man who had given me everything, and I felt sick. How could I do this? How could I betray him like this? But the truth was undeniable. I was in love with Ethan. The secret we were keeping started to consume me. Each stolen moment with Ethan made my love for him grow stronger, and the guilt I felt for Robert deepened. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to destroy everything I had built. But the pull I felt toward Ethan was something I couldn't fight. It was dangerous, reckless even, but it was also irresistible. The more we hid, the more I realized there was no turning back. One evening, everything came crashing down. Robert found out. He found out about the connection between Ethan and me, and the truth shattered him. The disappointment in his eyes was unbearable. "How could you?" he asked, his voice a whisper of pain. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. I had lost everything. The life I had worked so hard to build, the man who had trusted me. It was all falling apart because of my feelings for his son. After Robert found out, things became a blur. I didn't want to face the consequences of my actions, so I fled. Ethan and I tried to continue our relationship in secret, but the weight of the lies we were living was crushing. Every day felt like we were walking on eggshells, waiting for the truth to come out. And it did. Eventually, Robert found us, and the confrontation was nothing short of explosive. The fallout from that day was devastating. I lost Robert, I lost my marriage, and my relationship with Ethan, though passionate, was built on a foundation of lies. The guilt that consumed me was suffocating. I had ruined everything. I had been selfish. But Ethan was the only thing that kept me going. Even though I knew deep down, we were both damaged beyond repair. After the dust settled, I found myself alone. I had no idea what the future held. Ethan and I were left to pick up the pieces of our broken relationship, but it wasn't easy. I had betrayed a man who had given me everything, and Ethan had torn apart the family he had been born into. Yet, despite everything, we couldn't let go of each other. Maybe that was the greatest tragedy of all. One night, as I sat alone in the dark, I realized something. Ethan and I were not meant to be. Our love, as intense and consuming as it was, had destroyed everything I once held dear. It wasn't the fairy tale romance I had imagined. It was a tangled mess of emotions, hurt, and regret. And as much as I loved him, I knew that in the end, we were both broken, too broken to fix each other. Ethan and I had one last conversation. It wasn't a dramatic farewell, but a quiet understanding. We both knew that we couldn't continue living in this destructive cycle. We said our goodbyes, not with anger or bitterness, but with the understanding that love, while beautiful, could also be devastating. And sometimes, the greatest act of love was letting go. Even after we parted ways, Ethan's memory lingered in my mind like a haunting melody. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget him. The days were long, and I felt empty without the excitement, the rush of those stolen moments. Robert and I tried to rebuild some semblance of normalcy, but I wasn't the same. The guilt weighed heavily on me, and my heart ached for the life I had destroyed. I didn't know what I was looking for anymore, but I couldn't go back to pretending. Months passed, and I tried to focus on rebuilding my life. I started focusing on my career, my independence. I knew I needed to find a way to stand on my own. Slowly, I began to heal, though I couldn't shake the thought of Ethan. I kept asking myself if it was possible to ever forgive myself. But as much as I wanted to move forward, there were moments when my heart would betray me, and I'd find myself wondering if Ethan ever thought about me, too. One day, Robert sat me down. I could see the pain in his eyes, but there was something else, something unexpected. "I'm giving you a second chance," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I'm willing to try. For us." The weight of his words hit me hard. He was offering me a life I had once taken for granted. But could I accept it? Could I rebuild with him after everything that had happened? It felt like too much, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to say no. The decision to stay with Robert was not an easy one. I had hurt him, broken his trust, and yet he was willing to offer me a second chance. But in my heart, there was still a pull toward Ethan. How could I choose between the man who had given me everything and the man I had fallen for, despite the consequences? Every day felt like a battle, and no matter which path I took, I knew there would be no going back. Just when I thought I had moved on, Ethan returned. I saw him one evening at a charity event, looking just as captivating as before. Our eyes met across the room, and for a brief moment, it felt like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Ethan had moved on in his own way, and I had tried to do the same. Yet, in that moment, I couldn't deny the connection that was still there between us. It was a dangerous game to play, but part of me couldn't help but wonder if it was too late for us to fix what we had broken. As I spent more time with Robert, the silence between us grew. He could see that something had shifted in me. I wasn't the same woman he had married, and I couldn't pretend anymore. The guilt gnawed at me, and every touch, every word from him felt like a lie. He deserved someone who could love him completely, but that person wasn't me. I didn't want to hurt him again, but I was afraid that by leaving him, I would only hurt him more. The silence between us became deafening. One night, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I broke down in front of Robert, confessing everything. The affair, the love I still had for Ethan, the guilt that had been eating away at me. I expected anger, betrayal, or even rage. But instead, Robert just looked at me with an exhausted expression. "I knew," he whispered. "I've known for a while." The words crushed me. I thought I had kept the truth hidden, but Robert had seen through me all along. The realization hit me hard. There was no hiding from the consequences of my actions. I made the hardest decision of my life that day. I chose to leave Robert. It wasn't because I no longer cared for him, but because I couldn't live in the shadow of my lies anymore. I needed to find peace, and I knew that I couldn't find it with him. The weight of our marriage was too heavy for both of us. As much as it hurt, I knew that I had to walk away. Robert deserved someone who could be fully present in his life, and I could no longer be that person. The days after leaving Robert were filled with uncertainty. I didn't know where to go, what to do, or even who I was anymore. The life I had once known was gone, and all that was left was a void. But in that void, I found a strange sense of freedom. For the first time in a long time, I was living for myself. But even as I moved forward, there was still the question of Ethan. Could we ever truly be together? Or had the damage already been done? I took time for myself. I spent months rediscovering who I was outside of marriage, outside of Ethan, and outside of the chaos I had created. It was a long, painful process, but in the end, I realized something important. I couldn't expect happiness by clinging to the past. I had to move on for my own sake. Ethan would always be a part of my past, but he couldn't be my future. As much as it hurt to admit, I had to let go of him too. I ran into Ethan one last time. He was different, more mature, more grounded. And for the first time, I saw him not just as the man I had loved, but as someone who had grown, just like I had. We talked, not about what happened between us, but about who we had become. It was a peaceful conversation, one full of understanding. We both knew that our time together had been beautiful, but it had also been destructive. In that moment, we both found closure. Our love, though intense, had run its course. With time, I found peace. I moved into a new place, started a new job, and began to rebuild my life from the ground up. It wasn't easy, but it was liberating. I learned that happiness didn't come from a man, a marriage, or even a grand lifestyle. It came from within. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was truly free. I learned that life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes, the choices we make lead us down paths we never expected. But those paths, though painful, teach us valuable lessons. I learned about love, betrayal, and self-worth. And in the end, I learned that the most important relationship I could have was the one with myself. Looking back, I see how far I've come. I still carry the lessons of the past with me, but I no longer let them define me. I am stronger now, wiser, and more in control of my own destiny. Ethan, Robert, they are part of my history, but not my future. I've learned that sometimes, letting go is the only way to truly move forward. And now, as I stand at the edge of this new chapter in my life, I realize that everything I've been through has shaped me into the person I am today. I've learned to live for myself, to love myself, and to embrace the future with open arms. There's still so much ahead of me, and I'm ready to face it, whatever it may be. The past may have been messy, but it was mine, and I've finally made peace with it. My story doesn't end with a man, it ends with me. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.